To judge songs that you heard for the first time as the worthiness of airplay upon his show, Peel often rated new band songs with a series of asterisks, with each song being judged on a scale of 1 to 5. Peel was so taken with Teenage Kicks, he awarded it 28 stars out of 5.
Everybody out there, welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. I'm Andy, that's John over there. Hello, John. And we are here to dig into some music today. What do you have to say over there, John? Don't let me cut you off, buddy. Excellent. All right, great.
Let's
Excellent.
take it evening.
It looked like he had something to say. I'm sure it would have been profound. But today, John is going to be offering up a track for me to go up and listen to. I'm going to do just that, and then we're going to chop it up a bit afterward. John, what do you have in store for the class today, my friend?
Okay, so this is filed under You Mother Should Know. I mean, she was born a long, long time ago, but so it's one of those songs where I did a little sort of on my spreadsheet of songs for you. I put another column in called Bloody Obvious. And there's songs which are just completely, are bloody obvious to people of this country and of my time. And you are neither. So naturally, there are songs which I was, would think would be essential, listen since you grown up, but would have skated you by quite easily. And some that surprisingly haven't. And this is one of those ones. So it's a band we already listened to before, the Undertones. And many of our viewers will be pleased to know that this song is Teenage Kicks.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, my interest is piqued. I'm looking forward to giving this a go. You said it's called Teenage Kicks?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, let me go kick off and give this thing a go, and I will come back and let you know what I think.
She was mine, she looked so good. I wanna hold her tight. Yeah, teenage kicks right through the night.
Yeah, this sounds oddly familiar to me. I'm not sure where I heard it or when, but something about this is ringing very familiar with me. So we've got this aesthetic that obviously screams this is from some time ago. I'm going to go ahead and assume it's like late 70s-ish, somewhere in that neighborhood. It starts off, chunky, distorted guitar progression, kind of just chopping away with the rhythm is actually kind of light and fun. And there is this, coupled with the subject matter that we've got, like this sort of like, teenage kicks and spotting a new girl, that's kind of, captured your attention. There's this innocence to the song that actually, despite it coming from the time period that I just alluded to, which is like this impasse of, punk and post-punk and the garage, that gritty garage rock kind of movement. It has obvious elements of that, but it also has like shades of pre-Beatles, like wholesome rock and roll, if you will. Like, this sounds like a cover of a song that was written in like 1961 or something like that. Like, there's this. It almost reminds me of like, the song. Is it J. Frank Wilson's rendition of "Last Kiss"? It's kind of got that innocence of it, that coming of age innocence. So many songs were written about subject matter like that during that pre-Beatles wholesome rock and roll time period. And this has that while also possessing all of that late 70s stuff that I just alluded to. So that's an interesting dynamic, right? And I don't know if that's just me and y'all are going to be like, yeah, I don't get any of that. But it is like for me, I'm experiencing it like it's this odd marriage of those two sounds. Like the sentiment of one and more of the sound of the other. I don't know, it's just the vibe I got. But it's a short little ditty, so let's press on and see where it goes from here. But I am enjoying it, and God, it's going to annoy me that I can't put my finger on where I may have heard this or when.
Call her on the telephone. Have her over 'cause I'm all alone. I need excitement, oh, I need it bad. And it's the best I've ever had. I wanna hold her tight. Get teenage kicks right through the night.
Yeah. Hand claps. It's a John favorite.
A teenage dream's so hard to beat. Every time she walks down the street, another girl in the neighborhood. Wish she was mine, she looks so good. I wanna hold her tight. That teenage kicks right through the night. I'm gonna call her on the telephone. Have her over 'cause I'm all alone. I need excitement, oh, I need it bad. And it's the best I've ever had. I wanna hold her tight. That teenage kicks right through the night.
All right.
I wanna hold her tight. That teenage kicks right through the night.
Okay. Teenage kicks all through the night. Yeah, this was an interesting listen for all the reasons that I mentioned earlier, that only, those feelings maintained or were fortified as I listened to the rest of the song. I liked the little flourish on the from the gentleman playing the Les Paul there. That was a nice little added touch there towards the end. Yeah, there's something about this song that I would imagine is so accessible that it has mass appeal. There's enough pop sensibility in this song, despite the dashes or like sort of tastes of like that grittiness in the guitar tone a little bit, but it's packaged up in a very poppy way that, again, I think could easily translate to mass appeal. It's just a fun sounding song, and there is this wholesome quality to it. In the late 70s, so many songs of those subgenres that I alluded to earlier, whether it's like your punk or your post-punk or, garage kind of sound coming out of, New York at the time. And it's not to say that there weren't other places doing this as well. Obviously, I don't think these guys are New Yorkers. But so much of that stuff was about, like, heroin use or, this sort of stuff that kind of underscored the underbelly of society. And there's nothing wrong with that. Christ, look how many songs on this channel are centered around a lot, if not all those things. But this is oddly refreshing to hear this, late 50s, early 60s wholesome love song about a neighborhood girl and the feelings you get in your, teenage years of, like, puppy love or, being smitten. Hearing that injected into this is kind of, in a way, refreshing. I mean, I could easily see a nihilist or a pessimist being like, "Oh, but it's corny," not when it's held up against all the other stuff that was coming around the same time. In a way, it's like this odd little, you know, breath of fresh air in a way. At least, I mean, I didn't live it, but that's sort of looking back on so many great songs and bands from that time period and what they were about and what they, you know, sang about and wrote about is markedly different, I think, from this, and that's why it's of interest to me. I just think it's kind of neat and different, and good on them for, you know, finding something else to sing about. You know, not that that road or path hasn't been firmly laid out, but from the perspective of this gritty, garagey type sound, it's not something that's often talked about. So for that reason alone, I think it's a lovely song, but it's also wildly catchy and infectious. So, which again speaks to that mass appeal, you know, point that I was making earlier. Yeah, no, God damn, I know I've heard this song before. I just don't know where. But you know, in 3 weeks I'll be in the shower humming it in my head out of nowhere, and it'll come to me probably something like that. So, yeah, interested to learn more about these guys in this song. For some reason, this song feels like it could be a little bit more than just a 2 minute and 20-second ditty. Like it could have, you know, like I said, had a real following at one point. Who knows? Well, probably John. That's who. So let's get back and chop it up with him, shall we?
Slipper of the yard, he's back. So you've had to listen to Teenage Cacks. What do you reckon?
Well, it dawned on me that this is you've got my number, and then what's the parenthetical thing after the title?
Why don't you use it?
Why don't you use it? Yeah, exactly. That's what it was. So yeah, that was the one episode that we did devoted to the Undertones. Yeah, so just based off the visuals alone, and to be fair, I can't recall when that track came out that we had devoted the episode to. But just by the aesthetic alone, you could tell that you were taking a step back into the Wayback Machine a little bit here. Not too far back, but I mean, it looked like we were in late 70s ish time period. So yeah, that's fun. That's always fun to go back in time a little bit. Like you said, it's of a time that precedes my own on this spinning, you know, football going through the galaxy. So it was cool to give that a watch. The chunky, distorted guitars chop away sort of at this chord progression as the rhythm section keeps things simple but pressing forward. And even the drummers back there having, you know, he's got that look to him of like
It's Ringo, isn't it?
of an early era, you know what I mean? Like early era drummers always had that, like even early Ringo had that like goofball back there, smiling away. But more on that sort of period to come actually in music, which is interesting for me when you juxtapose it to the visuals and even the tones of the guitar on this, which are alien to that period that I just alluded to. But the singer joins delivering this opening stanza of the first verse, during which he sings of teenage dreams and witnessing a girl walking down the street and being essentially smitten by her appearance. I'm paraphrasing and drawing conclusions, but I'm pretty sure that's where he's going with this. And then it's followed by, you know, his expressing interest in wanting to hold her tight and getting his titular teenage kicks all through the night, or right through the night, or in some way through the night. And I have to admit a couple things. One, there's this odd sense of familiarity I have listening to this song. Like I'm pretty sure I've heard this before in some way, shape, or form, whether through some other medium of art or just naturally in passing or something like that. But there are these moments where things are really ringing true, like deja vu. So it's stirring some faint recollection of mine. And then the other thing is, I, for some reason, and this is where I'm harkening back to the what I alluded to a moment ago, it is conjuring this similarity or this like distant kinship to pre-Beatles wholesome rock and roll. And I know that that's a vague term and not one that's been, professionally, designated to that sound. But, and again, this has shades of like the late 70s that I talked about earlier, sort of like at this impasse of punk or post punk, but also this gritty garage rock kind of sound that was becoming popular at the time, or already was and was in full stride of popularity. And you could feel that, and thanks to the video you could see it as well. But for some reason I'm also getting shades of, like, I don't know why this song is the one that comes to mind. They don't sound the same, but they sound, for some reason I kept thinking of J. Frank Wilson's rendition of Wayne Cochran's Last Kiss, or some other early jukebox classics, that sort of sound where the feeling is wholesome and just more lighthearted than what you got from late 70s music out of post-punk punk. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm not familiar with the songs you just said. Um, are we talking sort of like late Buddy Holly sort of stuff, Eddie
Yeah,
Cochran, that sort
yeah,
of thing?
yeah, that
All right.
sort of cut from that cloth where everything is, I don't
Or
know.
even more twee like Neil Sedaka or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, I
Last
get
Kiss is
you. I get
essentially
you.
a wholesome song about wanting to take a girl out on the date, your girlfriend, and then you get into a car accident and she passes away in the car accident. But it's all very
Oh, I
sweet.
think I have heard that
Yeah,
actually, but I didn't
I
know what
kissed
it's
her
called.
on our
Yeah.
last kiss. I
Yeah.
found a love that I knew I would miss. And just the bouncy nature of the lyrics and the harmonization and stuff like that. It just seemed like this was a 70s nod of the cap to that era of rock and roll, with chunkier guitars and more distortion, but still this wholesome messaging in it, like, that I found interesting. Go ahead.
We don't normally have this discussion at this point in the episode. We usually have our monologues, but it's interesting because I would say of this, I would put this. It's got a '60s sound to it in terms of like the song structure, but I would say it is kind of a little bit Mersey Beachish and a little bit early modish, and I'd hear the Kinks in this because they were the one band that did have guitars that sounded like this,
Yeah,
out of anyone, a little bit,
yeah.
but yeah, so that's interesting. But it's, again, horses for courses, isn't it? In
Yeah,
terms of
yeah, absolutely. And
what
this is just
and you and I knowledge of late '50s, early '60s music is probably the least of all the stuff that we know. And then what's going on in each country as well at the same time, the
yeah,
least knowledge. Yeah.
yeah,
Pre-Beatles is a
exactly.
very murky era, for me.
Yeah, 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 and
Very
for me
murky.
too. But what I all like in here, there was, especially growing up, and it still happens from time to time with a film or a series that comes out. There is sort of this glorification of that period of Americana.
Goodfellas.
Yeah, Goodfellas. I'm thinking even like the Wonder Years before it got to like the Vietnam War
Yeah.
era and all that stuff started unfolding. And just, that late 50s, early 60s lifestyle and popular music and stuff at the time. This had that easily accessible nature to it, but just through the lens of these chunkier, more distorted electric guitars. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I thought,
I'd say that.
yeah, so I thought that that was kind of interesting, and I actually, by the end of the video, was actually kind of commending it, even though you and I literally just laughed on a recent episode. Now I don't know if that, because that's a viewer request, if it's going to appear after this or before it, so forgive me, I haven't looked at the calendar. But this idea of, god damn, there's so many love songs, you know what I mean? The musical landscape is littered with these kind of songs. But in this context, during this time period, where bands that you could put in or around this subgenre were putting out songs mostly about the underbelly of society and heroin use and street life and all this stuff, to have a song that in any way stirs in me some sort of adjacent correlation to simpler times or more wholesome times is in itself kind of ironic. So it kind of is outside of the box in that little world that I just outlined, even though it's very much mainstream, completely outside of that. So that was what kind of made me interested in this sound and this song. It's and to be fair, I don't have a lot to say about the song because it's pretty linear and it
Yeah.
follows the blueprint and it's 2 minutes and 20 seconds long. So there's not a lot to get into the music. Don't get me wrong, it's wholly enjoyable little tune, but and there is more to it than the 2 minutes and 20 seconds of just the music that it is. And I guess that's what I'm trying to convey here is like how I ingested it and the little things that I thought were interesting or ironic about it. Now, by the time this thing is coming close to the end, I'm noticing like hand claps, which also has that feeds into that one. I know you don't like them, and that made me chuckle a little bit. But two, it does feed into that. I don't know. There's something so poppy about hand claps, right? And which is why probably when you hear too much of them, you want to throw up because it's just too much. But there is this saccharine quality and this childlike nature to hand claps and music, so I thought that that was kind of funny as well and only underscores my early sentiments about this being a little bit different from the music that was coming out during the late 70s in genres like this or adjacent to it. And then your man on the Les Paul starts doing some simple but fun little flourishes on his guitar as the sort of credits for the music video come up there in the bottom corner. And I really like that as well. They were tasteful, they weren't over the top or anything like that, but they didn't need to be, and they added just enough flavor to kind of differentiate this portion of the song from the previous, 2 minutes and 15 seconds of it. So yeah, this is followed by the singer repeating the refrain, I want to hold her, want to hold her tight, get teenage kicks right through the night, all right, or some sort of like vocalizing whoop type thing towards the end. And then the song resolves and comes to an end. So yeah, I totally enjoyed the track and can imagine it had a strong following. I don't know anything about the track aside from this one exposure to it, but there's something about it that is and it's there's something about it and that something is its pop sensibility. And I think that pop sensibility gives it this palatability that then lends itself to mass appeal. So I could see this song being the hit that put them on the map, and I could also feed into why I feel like I've definitely heard this before. I just don't know when or where or any context surrounding this possible previous exposure to the song. So tell me some more about this one and get into some more about the Undertones if we haven't got into it already.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for that, Andy. Yeah, reason I picked this is this is a stalwart, 24 karat classic song, which was never a hit, but it's what the Undertones were known for. Yeah, I'll get into that. But there's a couple of reasons why I picked this. And the second one being John Peel, and I'll get into that. So, as you alluded to, we've already gone through quite a bit on the Undertones in a previous episode. You've got my number. Why don't you use it? I'll put a link in below to that, and you can go back if you want to check out the band and all this. Like, just very briefly, they're formed in Derry, Northern Ireland, 1974. They're known as punk, pop punk. I hate that phrase, but it's true. Power pop and new wave. So for up until 1983, the Undertones consisted of Fergal Sharkey on vocals. You've got to do that every time you say his name. John O'Neill, rhythm guitar vocals. Damon O'Neill, so the O'Neill brothers, lead guitar vocals, and Michael Bradley bass vocals, backing vocals, and Billy Doherty on drums. So Teenage Kicks is a debut single by the Undertones. It was written in the summer of 1977 by J.J. O'Neill, John, the band's principal songwriter and lead guitarist. He said in an interview, it's quite a nice story behind this. He said, we started to, and this gives you a little insight into the band and what was going on then as well. So we started off doing a lot of cover versions of early R&B stuff, as you can imagine, in the 70s. But then the plan became to either write a new song or do a new cover version every time we played, just to keep things fresh. Well, Teenage Kicks was among the batch of new songs. The Ramones were a big influence on us, as was Uptown R&B of the early 60s by girl groups and also Phil Spector. So there you see the pop influences.
That's exactly the sort of period and genre that I was alluding to, that early 60s R&B meets rock and roll kind of. Yeah, exactly what I was saying. Okay, that's so interesting.
So, yeah, it goes on. It gets even more interesting. His productions were incredible. His handling of Guns with Girlfriends, not so much. But the chord progressions on a lot of the songs were fairly standard. So I suppose I was trying to copy that cliched pattern with the 3-chord riff to Teenage Kicks. Another classic record around this time was Television's Marquee Moon, on which the song Prove It also had that standard 3-chord progression. But, obviously, played in a different way. In the spirit of classic rock and roll, I quite literally wrote Teenage Kick in 5 minutes. The words, the music, everything. It's not exactly groundbreaking in any way, but the Teenage Kicks EP does capture an enthusiasm that many people can relate to. It still sounds fresh and exciting, and it's so natural and spontaneous that it takes you back to where you were when you were 15 or 16. And I think that's one of the big charms about this song.
Yeah. And if you're in the mid to late 70s writing the song and you backtrack to whenever, 15 years before that, you're sort of in that wheelhouse growing up listening to that music. That is exactly what I was trying to suggest, although not in an articulate fashion whatsoever at all. But yes, that's what I was aiming for. And so it's just nice to hear that that's how successful he was in implementing bits of that to make
you got it.
A 40-year-old in 2025 hear it and go, that's what he was going for, even though I wasn't around in the 70s or the early 60s. So, Eureka.
So, trying to secure a record deal, the Undertones recorded a demo of their songs in March 78. They then sent copies of the tape to various record companies, as well as John Peel. Unfortunately, the record companies weren't nearly as enthusiastic as Peel. Some of them never replied, and some did. So, Dear Hopeful opened Stiff Records' standard rejection letter, which led guitarist Damon O'Neill, lead guitarist Damon O'Neill, held on to. It says, the letter continues, "It must be pretty obvious by now we haven't even got the decency to write a personal letter to you. But at least you sent one. If we've had it too long, we apologise. And if there's no tape with this letter, then we've either lost it or are considering taking it further and putting it out as a hit under another name. Thanks for sending it anyway, and don't give up, even though the best record company has, in fact, turned you down." So that was the rejection letter they got on Stiff Records. So a local guy, Terry Hooley, he finally agreed to issue an EP on his independent Good Vibrations label. And so in June 78, the day after the Undertones played their first gig in Northern Ireland's capital city, Battle of the Bands gig, promoted by Good Vibrations. I had like 6 other sort of post-punk or punkish bands at Queen's University McMurdy Hall. The Undertones, the day after that, entered the studio. Within a matter of hours, they laid down 4 songs on a budget of £200. Again, John O'Neill carries on. We just wanted to make an EP because it was a throwback to the early 60s when the Kinks, the Animals, and the Beatles all did that. And then for us, there are also 2 important EPs of the early punk period. Live at the Marquee by Eddie and the Hot Rods and Spiral Scratch by Buzzcocks. They were both seminal records for us, and we wanted to try and make our own Irish version of them. So the original EP was released under Good Vibrations in September 78. The band then signed to Sire Records in October 78, and Sire Records subsequently very quickly obtained all the copyrights to that EP. The song was then re-released as a standard single on Sire's own label within 2 weeks of that year. So with it, they released their thing, they signed to Sire, 2 weeks later, it's out, and they got to number 31 in the UK singles charts 2 weeks after its release. And that's as high as it got. So the lyrics, which are fairly simple, and it's almost a bit of like, again, you just as you were saying about the 60s, I wrote down, it's almost like, Pretty Woman or Do a Diddy
Yeah.
There she was, just walking down the street. It's that sort of thing, but with a little bit more sort of hope and angst in it, and just a smidgen. A teenage dream so hard to beat. Every time she walks down the street, another girl in the neighborhood. Wish she's mine. She looks so good. I want to hold her tight. Get teenage kicks right through the night. I'm going to call her on the telephone. Have her over because I'm all alone. I need excitement. Oh, I need it bad. And it's the best I've ever had. I want to hold her tight, get teenage kicks right through the night. All right. And then there's a little guitar break. A teenage dreams are hard to beat. Every time she walks down the street, another girl in the neighborhood, wish she might look so good. I want to hold her tight, get teenage kicks right through the night. I'm going to call on the telephone, have her over because I'm all alone. I need excitement. Oh, I need it bad. It's the best I've ever had. I want to hold her tight, get teenage kicks all through the night. All right. Guitar solo with hand claps. I put in my notes here. I will just clarify. I don't hate hand claps. I just dislike overuse of them. I think they just come in for a section. It's great in a song.
Yeah.
When it's all the way bloody through for 2.5 minutes or whatever, then it pisses me off. Because it's like, it's the remedial class of percussion, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Anyone can do it. Let's get them involved, the non-musical people, and smack their meaty paws together. And it continues. I want to hold her tight, get teenage kicks right through the night. All right. So Damon O'Neill recalls, I still don't get bored playing that song. It's become a kind of iconic classic. And I think it's those parts where it goes from major to minor chords that make it so poppy. I can truthfully say we never equaled it or the sound that we got. There's a chemistry going on, the bass and the drum beat, classic as well, along with Fergal's absolutely brilliant vocal delivery. Everything on it just gels. People used to say we were pure pop, and for some reason we used to hate that term. But now I totally agree with it. It really is pure pop, and that's a beautiful thing. Of course, only being known for that one song down the years can be a bit annoying because we did other equally good tracks and had hits with things like Here Comes the Summer, Jimmy Jimmy, My Perfect Cousin. Well, I also have to say I don't think any of them sound as good as Teenage Kicks. I'm just proud that I'm a part of it. So going back to the band that we covered before, but Fergal Sharkey announced his intention to leave the band in 1983, citing musical differences as the reason for the breakup. He then ploughed his own way with a solo career. In 1999, the Undertones reformed, replacing Sharkey with Paul McCloone, and the Undertones remain to this day the most successful band to emerge from Derry, that part of Northern Ireland. So, upon first hearing Teenage Kicks in September 78, BBC Radio 1 DJ John Peel is reported to have burst into tears, and he admitted in an interview, I can't listen to it now without getting all dewy-eyed. And if I play it on the radio, I have to segue it into the front of another record because I can't speak after I've heard it. So to judge songs, and he used to get a shitload of stuff said to him, to judge songs that he heard for the first time as the worthiness of airplay upon his show, Peel often rated new band songs with a series of asterisks, with each song being judged on a scale of 1 to 5. Peel was so taken with Teenage Kicks, he awarded it 28 stars out of 5.
Did he account for what each of those asterisks stood for, all 28 of them?
I don't know. It's a great story anyway. When he first played the song on his show on 25th of September 78, he played the song twice in a row, which he'd never done before. With the explanation given to the audience at the time is it doesn't get much better than this, so he just put it straight back on. Peel is known to have repeatedly stated Teenage Kicks to be his all-time favourite song. In a 2001 interview given to The Guardian, Peel said that apart from his name, the only words he wished to be engraved on his gravestone were the opening lines, Teenage Dreams, so hard to beat. John Peel died in 2004, and in 2008, a headstone engraved with these words was placed on his grave in the Suffolk village of Great Fimborough. I have a photo of this, so I shall drop it in here. In 2004, just after his death, a mural in tribute to Peel, featuring the opening line from Teenage Kicks, appeared on a Belfast flyover, so like graffiti across it. This mural was removed in 2013. However, following a public outcry, The mural was reinstated in 2015. So yeah, it's the song's really gone into the sort of consciousness of the UK as one of those solid gold classics, even though it might have made them lot. It's been on so many compilations and stuff that era, punk, post punk, or that sort of the 70s as well. That hopefully they made a bit of money out of it, but
Yeah, yeah.
but it was never a
I
big
I
hit.
can't help but wonder what sparked Peel's visceral and emotional reaction to hearing this song. And I have to think that I don't know much about or nearly enough about this guy to come to any like concrete, conclusion, but it would just seem to me that a man who loves music, who probably found that love in music early in life, grew up listening probably to stuff like this, and to fast forward to where he was when he did, and the music that he was probably inundated with at the time, and to hear this sparkling little gem that somehow was representative of a earlier time in his life when he fell in love with what has now become his career, essentially, maybe just triggered something in him emotionally that just made him step back and be like, "Oh my gosh, I love this song so much. It takes me to a place,
Yeah,
where I found my love for this art or this craft."
yeah. I think it's almost quite a pure song in a way. I think because of that, it would cut through all the sort of noise around the time, and it would just kind of open the door and say, "Do you remember when you were 14?" And
Yeah.
and this sort of kind of music and that would have probably just spoken to him straight away, immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I was
I
thinking.
guess. I guess. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah, we'll
think
never
so.
know, I'm sure.
Yeah. So yeah, really nice little simple pop song that's just great and it's instant and that's it. Nothing complicated about it, but
Exactly.
just superb. Thanks for listening to this, Andy.
Thank you.
Folks out there, please hit the like button. You know you want to. Um, and drop some comments or your thoughts on Undertones. I think they're a great band actually, and probably not as lauded as they should be. There's some really good songs. Might drop a couple more. My Perfect Cousin is a bloody great song. It really is. It's funny as hell as well. But yeah, we'd love to hear from you. Tell us what you think. That's such great energy as well. Great sound to them. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. We really appreciate everybody who does support the channel, and everybody's welcome, even you. So yeah, hop on board. We'd love to have you. That being said, thanks again so much for watching, and we'll see all of you in the next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you guys later. You too.